In order to get your offer accepted as a real estate agent, right, whether the market's competitive or not, you have to tell a story to the seller. There's 3 things that you can do that are not really taught in real estate school, and they don't really go over these things. But I've got a friend named Tom who's going to break down for us the exact 3 things that you want to do as a real estate agent to get your offers accepted consistently. With what's going on in the market right now, this is a perfect thing to learn. So let's check this out.
Regardless of where you're at, what we're going to be talking about is the offer to purchase and using that purchase agreement to tell a story to the seller of our buyer's ability and commitment to get to closing based on the terms of the offer. Because you're here, I'm guessing you've written offers for buyer clients multiple times in the most recent markets.
Bingo! How fun!
The offer to purchase is the perfect tool for buyers. Offers to purchase are designed, no matter what state we're in, they're designed to protect the buyer from closing on the terms of the accepted agreement. That's my assertion. As we go through an offer to purchase and go through it line by line, you'll start to uncover the high risk conditions that, when looked at from a seller's perspective, are things that a seller, given an option, isn't going to agree to accept. Offer documents, as we had said, are designed to favor the buyer. The conditions that favor the buyer are high risk conditions for the seller. All contingencies are designed to be escape clauses. If you work with the VA offers or FHA offers, they actually call the appraisal contingency an escape clause. And that's exactly what that is, as the way it's written. And it's the same thing with other contingencies. Contingencies are escape clauses. I'm going to just take a look at one. This happens to be a Wisconsin offer to purchase, but it doesn't matter if you're in Wisconsin or what state you're in, you've got something similar to this. On this page alone, there are a couple of escape clauses. First one is what's called an inspection contingency. This inspection contingency specifies that the inspection has to be done by a licensed home inspector. It explains what an inspection is compared to what testing is. We go down further, take a look at line 216. The buyer could give the seller the right to cure conditions that they discovered, or they could write this offer and not give the seller the opportunity to cure. And if an agent writes this offer without giving the seller the opportunity to cure, the seller's not going to accept this offer if they've got another option. So for example, if you had something like this in your offer to purchase, if a buyer's going to be able to get an offer accepted with an inspection contingency, at least giving the seller the opportunity to cure is one advantage that's going to make your offer more attractive to the seller. Here's another one. I want to take a moment to talk about this because every state and every brokerage probably has a contingency addenda where you can pick and choose which contingencies that you'd like to include. Well, contingency addenda are like taking a person through a all-you-can-eat buffet. Everything looks good. And in presenting a contingency addenda to a buyer, would you like to have this contingency? Would you like to have that contingency? Would you like to have that contingency? Presenting those options to somebody is going to be like taking them through a buffet. Yes, I want that. Yes, I want that. That looks good. I want to talk about this radon testing contingency. In our state, this contingency did not exist in the offer to purchase prior to 2011. But when we went through the recession, market crashed and it's flipped to a buyer's market. Sellers didn't have choices and buyers could get any contingency they wanted put into an offer. And one of the contingencies that somebody thought was a good idea was, let's put in a radon testing contingency so that everybody who writes an offer on a property can, if they want to, put in a contingency to test for radon. Agents who had been checking this box and including this contingency for their clients for a number of years continued to check this box and include this contingency. Well, we took a look at this and said, well, wait, why are we testing for radon?
People say, well, because radon causes cancer and cancer's bad. And I want to protect my buyer client from things that could harm them. So I recommend to everybody that they include this radon testing contingency.
I had this conversation with a group of agents.
And one of the agents said, look, I had cancer cancer, and cancer is very serious. I would never let my buyers write an offer without a radon testing contingency.
Well, let's take a look at what a radon testing contingency in an offer in a real estate transaction looks like. Well, it allows to test the property for a radon level, and that test probably lasts for a couple of days. And as we know about radon, is radon levels fluctuate, right?
That is correct.
A radon test might cost $200. You can have a custom designed mitigation system. Let's say it's $1,200. A $1,200 system is going to provide a guarantee that the property is mitigated from radon 100% of the time. But if you want to protect a person from being exposed to radon, the radon testing contingency doesn't do that. The radon testing contingency only brings into play who's going to pay for that system. So one of the easiest things to make an offer more attractive is for a buyer to not include a testing contingency for radon, but just take the approach that regardless of what my radon level is, it'll cost me $1,200 or less to put in a mitigation system, and that's something that I probably should have in my house. Knowing our buyer is our idea number two. Risk tolerance is relative to our knowledge. Not every buyer looks at every situation and sees the same risk. For example, if I was a buyer, I was not assured that I could make up the difference between the purchase price and an appraised value, or make up the difference in order to get my financing approved, I might be very risk averse to including a condition where I'm offering to pay more money. But if you are a person who is willing to pay more money than the property is worth, you don't have the same concern as me. So protection that I might need in an offer to purchase might not be the same protection that you need. You may be able to go without that. If you come from a background of construction, you may not be concerned about certain things that would come up in an inspection, so you might not need certain provisions in an inspection to protect you from having to make some certain repairs. On the other hand, I might not have that experience and I might need that kind of extra protection. So knowing the ability of our buyers gives us the opportunity to present to them different options. Financial ability is relative to their knowledge of what options are available to them. And I'm going to give you a quick example. In our offer to purchase, we have what's called a financing commitment contingency. It's not a contingency to get the financing, it's a contingency to get a commitment letter. Forever, we had been writing offers that said the buyer will provide a letter from a lender that says, based on the information received but not yet verified, it looks like the buyer is able to get the financing. As the market changed, lenders got wise and they started providing a more serious commitment letter right from the get-go. I guess you can't read this as well as I thought you could. This is a commitment letter that was provided prior to the buyer submitting the offer. And it flat out says that they've already been approved for underwriting and they're approved to purchase up to $1 million. This is a totally different kind of commitment letter or a pre-approval letter than it had been provided multiple years ago. But because the market changed, lenders started to adjust. And so one way of putting a buyer in a better position is finding lenders who are willing to make this kind of a commitment up front. The third idea is that we prepare our clients to win. Simply put, the first time a buyer sees an offer to purchase shouldn't be when it's ready for them to sign. One of the differences that we can do today, getting a buyer ready to go into a competitive market would be like getting a person ready to take them on a hike up a mountain. They need to know what's lying ahead. They need to know the challenges that are ahead of them. They need to know the struggles that they're going to face, needing to know how we can help them navigate through a difficult course. So when we first meet with a buyer, taking the time, setting up a system where we're going to review the offer to purchase so they understand what's in this offer to purchase and they understand what the conditions are and which contingencies they may be able to include and which contingencies are high risk, and getting to the point where they understand that this contingency I might be able to use in some markets, but I may not be able to use in competitive situations. So at that point, they can decide ahead of time that I don't need to include this in my offer because I want my offer to be read by the seller to tell the seller that, hey, I am more committed, I'm more prepared, and I'm willing to make this offer and show up for closing on time without renegotiating. That's the story that the offer to purchase can tell. On the flip side, an offer to purchase that's loaded with contingencies tells the seller this person isn't committed to close. This person isn't the best buyer for me to go into business with. The other idea on preparing a client to win is to make sure that they get together with the lender before starting to look at any homes. Now, that doesn't seem like such a wild idea, and it seems like it could be easy practice, but still, we tend not to do that. We start the process with going out looking at houses, and then the person finally gets together with the lender and gets pre-approved. If we do this ahead of time, get that person into the lender and get them to the point where they've got a solid commitment letter up front, they can include that in their offer to purchase and be prepared rather than be scrambling for this and saying, hey, we'll get you the letter later. Wrapping up, these are a couple of assertions that I have. The most acceptable offer is the offer that's going to be the safest for the seller. The most attractive buyer is the buyer who's most committed to close. And we do know that most accepted offers still go to the person who offers the highest price, but that's not always. Sometimes the person who gets the accepted offer isn't the one who makes the offer with the highest price. And we need to be ready and be prepared so that when that opportunity presents itself, we have the ability and our client is ready to make the offer that's the safest offers. One of the simplest things that we can do is to have another set of eyes take a look at our offer to purchase before submitting it. And I don't mean running it by a manager to get it approved, but just one other person taking a scan through the offer to see that we haven't omitted anything, that we haven't made any simple mistakes.